the proceedings? Who has a hot take we can start with? No volunteers?
I have a mild one.
Okay.
I have a mild one.
Come on then, Zabatine. Let's do it.
Zabatine, okay.
I think Sheo is the best jungler in Europe at the moment.
I should have been drinking more when you did that. I could have done the spit take. Okay, hit me with it. What I love is, generally, I have to say, Zabatine does do a good job. It probably, sadly, costs him with the KC fans. He does do a pretty good job in general of not having some crazy French bias. But this is an interesting one, because you didn't say he's really good. Best! Sheo, the best jungler in Europe. Yeah. Come on then, hit me with it. Hit me with why.
During this split, right?
Yeah.
I've watched all the games of LEC. I'm probably more expert in that field at like the Asian regions.
Okay.
You just have to look at the talent across the board of Team Heretics, right? They have Carlson minus 20 CS every matchup, right? Both ways. Camilo, like if he's not 15 CS down, he's usually dead. And Flackheaded Stan is probably one of the bottom 3 bot lanes in the league, thanks to SK and some other like shenanigans. Now you look at the early games of Sheo and how much he pushes this team, and you add the information of how Sheo was playing with Team BDS last year and how of a contender they were in the early game, while having some setbacks as well in early laning for some players, especially Adam last year wasn't having like the greatest time in lane. I don't know if you remember the second part of the year. So I know it's very hard to gauge a player that's playing on a losing team, but I think that he finds as much, if not more, edges in early game as Razork does, while remaining much more consistent during the game, where I think that Razork kind of falls and starts, I would say, making pretty like trivial mistakes. I think that Sheo keeps pretty consistent, and if you look at all the games from Team Heretics, which are not very fun to watch because the players' caliber, like they lose team fights, most of their edges, leads, and games have all been won when Sheo had a good game, and only if Sheo had a good game. He is supported by Stan, who I think is doing a decent job as a support, but I wouldn't consider him like top tier. But I do think that among all junglers, and maybe the discussion is with Elioya, who has had a very good split as well, I think that Sheo has been the best performing jungler. And I did a fake, team, all pro team for my split, for my audience, and I made Sheo the jungler of the split.
He just means, by the way, he just means unofficial when he said fake there.
Yeah, unofficial mine.
Yeah,
right, yeah,
obviously for him it's the real one, just in case people think he means he was trolling. I know what you mean by that. Okay, what do you think, Kiri? It's certainly a take. It's certainly a take.
Here's the problem, and I think, okay, so in terms of like good things, in terms of what he does for his like team, I'm actually pretty high on Sheo as well. Even though like he's a player that has frustrated me for no end, part of being like that a further failing BDS roster. Where I feel like sometimes he would be getting like credit for things that I just like wasn't seeing, and then he wouldn't be getting like credit for like the stuff that he, not so much like innovating, but he was like boldly like trying to like do. But he would try and do like his rumble packs, his like tally packs and stuff like that, and actually take some like agency within the game. My biggest problem with him this is like when I see Sheo, like for example the Neferi game that he played, I think was the Neferi game the tiebreaker that he played against Team Vitality, where it technically doesn't constitute the regular season,
right,
but it does illustrate my point. Like, he has, like, very, very large leads. I might be wrong in this game. I'm pulling just from straight from the top of my head here. And it's, like, just watching him, like, executing, like, team fights, it's so bad. When it comes to just, like, playing for lanes and making early game, like, pathing decisions, I think Sheo is actually, like, very, very, very good. But in terms of, like leveraging leads in team fights, carrying, like, basically just doing, like, high-level, like, LCK, LPL, like, carry jungling that we consider common, I think he falls well behind the peaks of like Yike, the peaks of Skewmond. I think Skewmond was the best front runner in the LEC, one of the best front runners. Like Skewmond with a lead was impossible this split. Like the Xin Zhao game that he just won for G2 on his own, like that game on its own is just so much better than it's. Yes, it's a little less regular than some of the technical play of like Sheo. But that level, I've never seen Sheo ever play that game in the 3 splits or like the 2.5 years I've seen him play. You know what I mean? Like that game's just absolutely incredible. So that's where I become very like tentative. He would have maybe been like my 4th or 5th. I actually think Jungle was mega stacked this split, to be honest.
No, I'm with you. I thought we froze for a second because you just went like, I thought like they died, which does happen on these shows if you don't know. What's funny is I'll pick up on when you said at the end there. What's funny is, even though I joked because of the name value that like it's a crazy take, it's actually not that crazy a take because obviously if people don't know, I now watch LEC almost all of it now because I do a weekly show, so I have to watch like even the games of the fucking heretics the difference is in winter that was a struggle. In spring I have to actually say it wasn't bad. Like I actually somewhat enjoyed some of the games, like as you're saying, like if you go through their roster, look, they don't have any like superstar names, but like the joke is like I have a lot more respect for Flackhead after watching him play in some of these teams. I actually think Stend is kind of like he's sort of like one of the sleeper pickups of the split. Like this is someone where he wasn't on a lot of people's radars, but you can see why he was picked up. Like he's actually done well, and actually Sheo, funnily enough, is probably the biggest name in this team now because of his time on BDS. And I actually do think if you look initially, like you did at the end there, if you take the opposite side of Zabatine's thing, which is actually most people probably thought she was a meme or he was like one of the worst players on BDS or something. If you go from that angle, he has mega exceeded expectations in my opinion. Like I have to admit, when I watched him in BDS, I did watch their team and just go, is this guy just like the butler of Nuke? Is his job just because they're both French and just have to both spend all the time on the map? And so unfortunately, I have to say, this actually does make me realise I undervalued Sheo because what I didn't know is it actually might be the other way around. It actually might be Nuke holding him back. It might have been the BDS structure and how they want to play holding him back because when I see him on this team, mate, he looks unleashed. He looks way better individually. Even his raw hands look better. Like a gasp I didn't even know you had as a jungler. Because I think if you look at this team, first things first, if we're going to compare the other junglers, I'll do it really quickly. So the reason why this take sounds crazy is because you have 4 junglers for the top 4 teams who automatically people want to put ahead. So think about it, like Skewmond. I actually think Skewmond slept on, but now that I know he didn't even get any all-props, I thought he was like sleeper the best. I thought at times he looked sick. But I get, so, and obviously, by the way, you're playing with Caps and Broken Blade. Like, you can't ask for better players in the LEC. Then you go to Razork. Now, I will always point this out to people. Razork himself is somewhat living this split off a bit of his reputation from last year. Because everyone remembers when he had to do like 95% of the work to get them a game. Now he still does a couple of really good players, but now when he does the throw, it looks worse because he's got so many other good players around him. I would say if you're Razork, mate, I think you have the best roster on paper in the LEC. Like, what props am I giving you for that? I want to see you do it in the jungle. If I go to El Yoya's name may be not as big now. If you don't get it, guys, in his team, as far as I can tell, it is El Yoya's team. Like, as far as I can tell, they hired the coach he wanted, the players he wanted, and even the mid laner's job is like, do what El Yoya says. Like, the entire game runs through him, by the way. Like, it's great if you enjoy that style, but it does mean that, like, he has all the resources as a fucking jungler. I've never seen a jungler actually be the star player in the way that he is. Like, maybe you can compare Inspired in NA or something. That's about the closest I can go to. So I look at that and I'm like, mate, he has a lot more like pieces to use. And then the last name is obviously Yike from KC. Mate, of all the 4 big names, I think he might be coasting by the most. That he has a fucking, like, in his team, I don't even know that he's doing any of it. Like, as far as I can tell, it's their team fights that are godlike. I don't know that he's even had that great a split. It's just because he's on the team that finished first in people's brain, you must be top 3. If I look at all those pieces and then I compare the Heretics roster, mate, it's not even comparable. As we're saying, we didn't even say this name yet. Forget Carlson. This guy has Camilla as his fucking mid laner. A literal LFL Division 2 player is this guy's mid laner in his like fucking brand new squad, and he's killed it. I'm with you. I actually think he's not only performed better than expected, I didn't even know this was possible, mate. He's so far above the rim of what I thought was possible for his game. So put it this way, this is why it's a good hot take. I don't overall agree. I would probably still, maybe with Skewmond, I think that would probably be the one I would go for, even if that's a contrarian take. I think the playoffs have shown that was a pretty good take all along. I would just say this, though. I would not hate at all this guy being one of my all-pros, though. If this guy wants to be second or third, I think it's totally fine. Even if, by the way, that means I am doing something to a fan that's crazy, like taking Yike's name out or taking El Yoya's name out, or God forbid, and yeah, this might, maybe even taking Razok's name out. I do think he did earn it more than most of those players. So I'll give you it. I actually think it's a good take. And also, I'll just throw this out there as well. Those, in my opinion, those 2 details I mentioned earlier have to connect. So the Stend guy was super slept on until he played with Sheo. I'm sorry, I'm giving some of those props to Sheo because I do think in the modern day, the most underrated interaction is fucking jungle support. I think if you go and look at any supposedly great team, look at some of the past squads and Fnatic, etc. If you ever want to look for a flaw, look at the jungle support. If that's at all dodgy, there's one of your answers why they don't win the series and don't win the championships. Meanwhile, you go look at the teams when they cracked out jungle support, they're the best in the fucking league, mate. They run their region. So I think it's a good hot take. It's a good hot take. Okay. Right, you got to listen, Key Ray. Step up, mate.
Right.
Have you got
So,
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.